struggling to move your nonprofit forward? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Nonprofit Architect, where we are giving you the actionable steps you need to launch and grow your nonprofit organization. Now, here's your host, Travis Johnson.
Hey, this is Travis Johnson, the Nonprofit Architect, on today with Paul Vibes. If there's nothing else you know, is that Paul Vibes sends good vibes everywhere he goes. It's fantastic. Paul, glad you're here today, zooming in from Long Island, right?
Yes, I'm in here live right now, and it's good. It's good to be on. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem. We got connected through Matt Kubler, guest number 6 or 7. I think Matt is on. Just a fantastic guy. And I love getting the recommendations like, hey, you should really connect with Paul. And I loved it. First conversation went amazing. I just love what it is and what you're doing with the Long Island Buddy Club. Why don't you tell us how you get started with that?
Yeah, thank you. So the Long Island Buddy Club is a non-for-profit I started here in Long Island. And what's funny is it went through a couple of name changes as it kind of developed. Basically, we planned social events for the special needs community, 18 and up, to socialize, make connections with the community, improve their social skills, their confidence. And I know you asked me, what got me interested in the Buddy Club, what got me started. For me, it was really overcoming my own learning disability at a young age and basically being choked by the umbilical cord. At first, the doctors told my parents that they didn't think I was going to make it, but obviously I'm here. I'm very grateful, thankful for that. But it affected me a lot as I grew up. I was in smaller classrooms. I required tutoring every day, summer school, and I think they threw my brother in summer school even though he didn't need it, just so I wouldn't feel alone there. But thank you, my brother. He definitely didn't need it. But it was definitely, I think every young adult, no matter what their challenges are, their confidence, their insecurities, bullying, that is something we kind of all have to grow up with in some form or another. But for me, my big turning point, my paradigm shift, whatever you want to call it, my awakening moment or something, whatever you want to call it, for me was actually through volunteer work. And I remember sitting there with a veteran. It must have been, I think I was in about 10th grade. And it was during a club called Project Tolerance. And we were volunteering at the VA hospital with the veterans. And I remember just sitting there with the veteran. We weren't doing anything fancy. We weren't playing a board game. We weren't even just having a conversation. And it was in that moment that I was realizing that we as individuals, not just me, but we as individuals had the opportunity and the ability to make a difference in someone's life. And I saw the difference I was able to make on this veteran's life just by listening. And I realized, holy crap, my learning disability, my sexuality, the amount of money I have in my bank, my IQ score, where I live, none of that stuff matters. None of that matters. And it was in this moment that I had this realization. And I remember after that day, I just had this realization of, wow, I'm so much more than I thought I was. And I started taking care of myself more. I started getting even more involved in high school clubs, and I became a president of a club. And I started the people that once bullied me then became friendly with me. They knew that they couldn't bother me anymore. They knew that they couldn't get to me anymore because I was just, radiating this good energy and just improving my life. And then I had the ability to kind of sit there with kids in the cafeteria who were sitting alone and stand up for kids that were being bullied. And I was granted this great opportunity to kind of change my life around. And it was through those experiences that ultimately led me to create the Buddy Club. And it's been an amazing journey. It's really been a crazy, I look back and I'm like, wow, if it wasn't for that learning difficulty, if it wasn't for those challenges, I wouldn't be doing what I do now.
It's pretty amazing how the things that we forge our way through really end up changing and shaping us as people. And we talked a little bit before the show here about how, COVID is changing the world's experience right now. We talked about some of the differences. I used to just, grab a meal on the way home and, set up her podcast up and really was alone a lot of the time, even with all the opportunities out there. But now with trivia being canceled and with the gyms being closed and the movie theaters being closed and all this stuff, you really have to dedicate and carve out time specifically to meet with people, whether it's via Zoom when you got a schedule or just connect with people locally. And we were able to come together as a group and really just do one of these amazing things we do with military families. And we say military families, it's people that are deployed, they're out together, they really become family. They connect on this different level that a lot of civilians just don't have the opportunity to know about, because it's just not a thing. But you can connect with them and get down to the core of who they really are and see, where we're all struggling and all those things. And it's a thing, and it's wonderful, and it's magical. And the way that COVID's reshaping the world, we're really going to come out of this on a different place, on a different wavelength, and as unified as a humanity, really.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that too. Is like, it's all about the perspective, because there's a lot of people, I think it's just in their personality, like we said, there could be 99 things going right and it takes one thing to go wrong. And this is a big thing that's going on right now, but I do see a lot of positive things happening currently. And then I also see a lot of great things that can come out of this whole experience, not just as an individual level, but as a collective. I think that it really shows you that we're human, that we're vulnerable, that we depend on each other, we're interconnected. It shows the importance of, we take things for granted. If you would have talked to me about 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you had secret intel or something, but if you would have said to me 2 weeks ago that this would be happening, like the COVID, what is this? With the virus, we're not going to go to work, we're not going to go. But right now, literally all my classes for the whole semester are online. My internship is canceled. My job is kind of in the air. I'm very grateful because my job, I work one-on-one, so it doesn't require me to be in a big social setting for my job. But it's just crazy how quickly in life things change. And speaking about perspective, there was a point in my life, as I mentioned, my learning disability, where I was in that state of, why did this happen to me? I wish this didn't happen to me. And I was crying. And I remember asking my parents, what do I learn differently? And then they eventually told me about, what happened to me at birth. And there was this feeling of just, I want to be somebody else. And I think, especially at schools, when I speak at schools as a motivational speaker, you see a lot of kids that come up to me, and before the teachers talk to me, you just have a lot of kids that are just not happy in their shoes. They wish they were somebody that had more money. They wish they were this. They wish they were that. They wish they were smarter in this way. And for me, there was a point in my life with my learning disability where I wish I didn't have the life I had. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But it wasn't until the volunteer work in high school and all those experiences that I realized those learning challenges had to happen for me to switch my perspective on how valuable life is, and to focus on my strengths, not my weaknesses. And it went from wishing that never happened to saying it was a critical point in my development. And I hope that what's going on in the world, I think that we would agree that I hope that we can use this time to reflect on life and say, wow, what are the changes that we want to keep in our lives, and what's important to us as a world?
It's said that calm seas do not make skilled sailors.
I think I remember you telling me that. Yeah,
and I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's you can't take gold ore and make it into a golden ring unless you put it in the forge and you apply this heat and you change the state of the metal so you can put it in a form and make it what you want to make it. And the same goes as us as humans. If we're not, the pain is coming one way or the other. The pain of sloth, the pain of discipline, it's there. You have to choose your pain. And the pain of discipline is much preferable to the pain of sloth, the pain of laziness, because the problems are going to hit you no matter what it is that you do or want to do or what you choose. But are you going to be able to handle that when it comes? Are you going to be prepared? Are you going to have the perspective to say that, something's different about today? Where's my expectations at? Am I expecting chaos? Well, if I'm expecting chaos and it's anything less than complete anarchy, you can probably handle that. But if your expectation is going to be a smooth, calm day and any bump in the road happens, your whole perspective for the day is shot. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's one day, sometimes it's a handful of days, sometimes it lasts for months or years. And where our expectations are and where our perspective is a large determining factor of how we're going to come through that at the end.
It's true. I think it was my high school quote that I chose, something like, every day there's an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life, just one person's life or something like that. And, I think when I do my own podcast, which is on my YouTube channel and Instagram, and I post about it, is that even if just one person, or even when I'm giving a talk, and even if just one person gets something from it, or learns something, or makes an impact on one person's life, that's my philosophy. And I know other people and other speakers have said that, but it's so true, because we live in a society that it's always the numbers and how many views and how much impact can we make. And I think we lose touch with just making impact on an individual level, just making like a connection. It's like having a conversation with someone. It's like in that moment, you're making a connection, you're making a difference in their lives. And for me, when I speak at schools, or I speak at PTA meetings and stuff like that about overcoming my challenges, the stories and the people that come up to me and they say, listen, I can relate. My son or daughter has gone through a learning disability or other challenges, or a young adult that comes up after a meeting or a talk that I'm giving, and so I can connect. I relate to that. I was bullied, or I went through my own learning challenges. To me, hearing those stories just compound the idea that this is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, it definitely reinforces that. What kind of advice would you have for someone that's currently experiencing struggles?
So if someone's going through struggles, and something that I speak about in my talks is, I try to have them look at the struggles they've been through. So let's say they're currently going through, and we're all going through different things at any given moment. But I say, don't look at the challenge you're going through right now. Look at the challenges you've been through in your life. Try to have like a backseat, take a step back and reflect on the things that they've been through in their past. And what I had them do is I had them start to unravel those experiences and all the things that went along with overcoming that obstacle, that challenge. It could be a test. It could be going through a relationship problem. It could be a fitness goal or a different accomplishment in their life. And I try to have them look at those challenges, something that they once perceived as a challenge, and look at the ways that they've grown from those challenges. Because what ends up happening is, we've all been there. We're going through a challenge. And in that moment, the last thing that we're thinking about is how we're going to learn and grow from it. What we're normally thinking about is, why the hell am I in this situation? Why couldn't it have been somebody else? Why me? Why has the universe done this to me? Or, I hate my life. Or I wish this never happened. It's very rare that we'll have those moments where we're like, you know what? This is great. And in my own life, I try to have that perspective. But more importantly, when I'm speaking at schools or at different, even when I'm working one-on-one, I say, listen, take a break from this challenge. Let's look at the challenges that you have overcome, you have conquered. And they go, oh wow, yeah, I wouldn't have learned that if I didn't go through that lesson, or I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for that challenge, or I definitely wouldn't be as strong or as smart or as wise if it wasn't for all those challenges that they've overcome. And in a way, in some of my clients and the people I listen to after my talks, is one of the ways they described it is, I remember hearing something on the lines that there's a new excitement in the things that I'm dealing with right now. There's a new excitement of, even though I may not love and enjoy it, there's new excitement because I get to now discover new ways and mindsets, and I get to improve my tools and improve how I handle life once I get through this challenge. And it's kind of like looking for the learning experience. It's kind of like what we talked about before we recorded, is to this situation, what are the positive things that we're going to come out of? And I really believe that it's up to us to kind of say, you know what, after this is over, I'm still going to be a little clean. I'm going to make sure I wash my hands after walking out of the bathroom. It could be a small thing like that. And it could be a small thing like, you know what, I'm going to support more local businesses because I know how much they struggle when times are tough. Or I don't want to just call my grandparents and loved ones when there's a health crisis. I want to make sure that I keep in touch with them always. So to me, to answer your question, it's all about switching their perspective on the challenges that they're dealing with.
You have a very positive outlook, and you send these great vibes. Some call them Paul vibes.
Paul vibes.
Cheers. Loving the mug. Yeah, let me know when those are for sale so I can get one.
Definitely. Thank you.
There needs to be more people that are interested in sharing and spreading the things that you're doing. Not because it's under the Paul Vibes brand, but because it just makes sense as a society. We talk about all these things that bother us, and there's videos out there where they talk about, oh, I can't believe I was just delayed at the airport for 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
Oh, no.
And you're like, it used to take like years to go across the country, and people would die and would be born along your travels, and you wouldn't even show up with the same crew that you had. But I'm sorry, your coast to coast flight got delayed 40 minutes. I guess the world's going to end now. And I'm not saying that to discount people that are having those struggles for whatever reason or focusing on them. But the myriad of struggles that we have as an individual, as a family, as a society, they're astronomical, and they can be as good or as bad as the person going through that struggle, and the network of people that they have around them, with people like yourself, Paul, that are pumping those good vibes out there and letting us know that we're going to make it. I think that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not to discredit. I think, I'm going to school as a social worker, and I remember talking to my own therapist, because they recommend in social work, every social worker needs a social worker. Like every sergeant needs a sergeant. Like you're going to need a commander just because you're in command of a group. There's someone in command of that commander. And then the point is that and it's funny because in my second part of my main talk, I talk about the importance of seeking help and seeking resources. And I believe that there's always, even our coaches, our mentors, they have coaches, they have mentors. And, growing up with a learning disability, I had to realize at a young age that it's very important and necessary to seek help. So growing up, I didn't know everything. I needed help. I struggled in certain subjects. But what I learned at a young age is, maybe I'm going to have to spend my lunch period and focus on this subject. Maybe I can't go out and play right away. Maybe I need to get this homework done because I know that I'm going to have, it's not going to get done if I don't do it right away. So to me at a young age, it allowed me to focus on what I needed to focus on, but also to be very self-aware of my strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's something that, we struggle with as individuals is, do we focus on our strengths or weaknesses? How do we really ask for help? That's a big struggle. I think right now, more than ever, we need people to reach out, especially young adults who are dealing with different mental health problems and different issues. You have a lot of kids that the stigma around mental health, the stigma around bullying and drug use and all these things, it's hindering young adults from actually reaching out to, it may not be their own parent. It could be a friend's parent. It could be reaching out to a guidance counselor. I think that we need more young adults, and especially in this time with everything going on in the world, we need people in general to not be afraid to, ask for help.
I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I was talking to my friend earlier today about some of the things that she could do to improve her situation. And she's a great kid, and there's some stuff she's struggling with because, as I already said, she's a 17-year-old girl that just has a whole pile of stuff that comes along with it. But there's areas that she really needs to ask for help on, and this and that. And the person I was talking to, and I was like, so when did you finally figure this out? And they were like, oh, kind of like when I was 35. I was like, oh, okay. Like many, many years after, this situation happened. And I talked about this in another episode, but we're at this place somehow, for some reason, we as a society have collectively decided that it's not okay to ask questions. And that's a garbage philosophy. It's complete garbage. We have Google. You can say, okay, Google, tell me the whatever. I'm sure we have Siri and whatever, every other personal assistant, digital personal assistant out there. You can ask anyone any of these questions. And it's nuts because all these resources are available, but for some reason, if we're in person to talking to another one, that we for some reason can't ask a question. Now, what kind of sense does that make? I mean, there's some stupid questions out there. There's a couple that exist, but by and large, it's okay to ask a question. Hey, what was that place we went to last week to eat? Or I don't remember in fifth grade who invented the cotton gin, or whatever question comes across your mind. In the nonprofit world, you might have questions like, how do I run a digital meeting now that we can't meet in person? Or how do I run a digital event? Or how do I have the Long Island Buddy Club in a place where COVID means we can't have groups of however many people? Like, how do you address a challenge like that?
Yeah, well, I think that the first thing is to there are those people that shut down, right? When there's challenge, like they shut down. I can't handle this. I don't want to do it. But I think people like you and I, and especially with our experiences with non-for-profits, is you got to learn to adapt. Hence why, first of all, I knew that we would be doing this video streams and, recordings anyway. But what I've been doing, for example, with my podcast, is I've been doing all of mine through video currently, because I still want to meet people. I feel like I still want to connect with people. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that we're talking about offers value, especially in this time. I just had a podcast with someone who's a podiatrist, a foot doctor, and she uses essential oils. And she talked about using essential oils with the health crisis going on and everything now, different oils that can be helpful with our health and our immune system. And then I had somebody else on who was a spiritual life coach and amazing human being, and offering help. And we did a guided meditation during the podcast. Super cool. And to me, during this time, or anytime people are going through challenges, don't be afraid to ask people who know better than you. And I forgot, I don't know who this is from, but there's some quote that says something like, never be the smartest person in the room. And I'm telling you, I'm very rarely ever the smartest person in the room, because my whole philosophy in life is I'm a student of everything and master at nothing. And, I don't mean that, say that to put myself down, but I really mean that because, I want to keep myself humble, as I expand, as I started not-for-profit, as I now, I'm speaking at schools. A lot of people put us on pedestals, right? I'm sure even you too, it's important to stay humble. And what's funny is that when I'm giving these talks, people are always like, how do you do that? How do you have the confidence to do this? And I say, I truly believe that each person in the audience can be up in front of a stage and talk about something much better than what I could talk about. So what I mean by that is each person has their own interests, their own hobbies, their own passions. And I remember giving a talk recently, I think I mentioned to you, at a special needs center, and some of those individuals were just calling out. They were so passionate about different things. They were sharing these intense challenges that they've been through or currently going through. And I felt motivated just being in their presence. And somebody said something really inspiring and really cute. And I went up to the front row of tables and I pretended to sit down. I said, guys, I don't need to be standing up here anymore. You guys should be up here. You should be leading this talk. And everyone started cracking up. But I truly believe that each one of us has our own gift, our own passion. And each one of us could be in front of that stage just as much as I can and speak about something that interests them. I know I kind of went off there, but to answer your question, I just believe that people shouldn't be afraid to ask for help and to seek other professionals to kind of learn how to adapt in this time. I'm not sure if I answered your question or not.
You know what? I enjoy the journey so much. I don't even remember what the question was.
Yeah,
but you touched on something, and then you talked to the audience and said that everyone has something that they can talk about. So what did you do when you were working on building up your own confidence, and how can someone take what you did and apply it to what they need to do?
Yeah, so good question. So after that experience of that veteran, I slowly started making changes in my life. So I said to myself, okay, I just made this impact on this person's life. Definitely want to keep doing this stuff. I enjoy it. So I kept getting involved in this club called Project Tolerance. And the founder, the person, the director, the whatever you call it, the administrator, the teacher who started that club, he also happened to be a social worker. And I think he's definitely one of the inspirations of me becoming a social worker myself. But what's funny is I started helping him write the agenda. I said, could I type out the agenda for the meeting? I had no plans to be a president or speak in front of the class. I said, hey, can I help you type out the structure of the meeting? Then I started doing that. And he said, hey, you just type, why don't you go in front of the club today and talk about what we're going to go over? I said, oh, okay. I was a little nervous. Started doing that. And then I started inviting new kids into the club. And then I started taking on a leadership role. And even outside of that volunteer experience, I said to myself, okay, what can I control? I can't control the fact that I have a learning disability. That's something I have to learn to accept and work with. But wow, I can start focusing on my diet. I can start focusing on my fitness level. I can go to the gym before school and after gym, and end of my lunch periods. I could focus on reaching out to kids standing alone or sitting alone in the cafeteria. That's within my control. So I said, how do I focus on what's in my control rather than what's outside of my control? And What's in my control? Well, I can focus on my free time, focusing on the subjects that I struggle with. I can focus on my fitness. I can focus on my health. I can focus on making a difference in the community through volunteer work. So for me, my advice is, even as a speaker, is to focus on the things that are in our control. And I know it's said often and it's said a lot, and a lot of people say it in a lot of different ways, but I think it's something that we forget. We all seem to want to focus on what's not in our control rather than the millions and infinite of things that are in our control. So I think for me, that's my biggest advice, is to focus on the things day by day that we can make a difference in.
Yeah, especially in this environment, it's really easy to get spun up about the future, where we're not sure how this pandemic is going to affect our business, our life, our future, our school, our relationships, our retirement, our, pick the thing. You can get spooled up. And I just ran through a quick list there. I was getting fired up, right? But I don't need to make it that far. I just need to make it through the next 10 minutes. I just need to make it through the next hour, the next 5 hours. I just need to make it to the end of the day. I just need to make it through the night. I just need to make it through the end of the week. And when you can get those little smaller chunks done and those little steps along the way, before you know it, you're well on your way. You reach your goals, you're past your goals, and you're on to the next thing before you know it. But if you try to look at the top of that mountain from the bottom all in one shot, oh man, I can't get up to the top of the mountain today. But I can put on the right socks and I can work hard and I can get to that next base camp. Or I can pack the food I need and look over the map that I need and fine tune my navigation and make sure I have the right guide. You mentioned coaches earlier, and we've got the news that devastated all the New England fans when Tom Brady signed with the Buccaneers. But what's amazing to me is someone at that caliber, at that level, that, love him or hate him, he's an amazing quarterback and an amazing leader. He still has a coach and a group of coaches that give him feedback all the time, that help him tweak his game, that help him refine his stuff. He still has a team, a personal trainer, a personal chef, all these people around him that help him get better. Someone that's at the top of their game, who's into his 40s and still crushing it in professional sports, where that's, really outside the lines. There's only been a handful of people that have done well in their 40s, just, by the nature of the beast. But he still has these coaches and this team around him, his personal team as well as his football team around him, that do the things that they need to do to get better. And so many of us, whether it be in life and business or nonprofits, are unwilling to ask for help, ask for direction, ask for suggestions, ask someone to be their mentor, ask someone to be their coach, willing to pay a coach or a consultant to come in and be like, I'm not meeting my goals or my thing. Help me dissect this. Where am I doing good at? Where am I doing bad at? What have you seen from your experience? Too many people are not willing to do that and take the steps that they need in order to really fine tune and hone in to what their mission is. You mentioned something earlier about really focusing you're good on. Should I really do what I'm good at? Should I try to get all my other stuff better? Where should I put my energy and my effort? Now, I know me personally, I do really well having an interview with a person. For me to just hop on a camera on my own and just talk, I'm awful. I sound terrible. I don't know what I'm talking about. The ums and the ahs and the whatevers just flow from me like I've never spoken before. It's disgusting. And I'm also not good at the tech side. But what I am good at, as far as I can tell, maybe you'll tell me I'm wrong. Maybe people actually give me some comments and feedbacks and be like, no, Travis, you're terrible. You need to stop doing this. Right? No one tells me, right? But I really enjoy connecting with people and getting down, behind the armor and behind the scenes and seeing what they're all about and seeing what they're doing. And I've got a team that does the production. I've got a team that puts together the t-shirts and the quotes. And I've got a team that does all this stuff. And the things that I'm really good at is connecting, coaching, consulting, guiding, teaching. Those are the things I really excel at. And all the other stuff, I pay someone else to do that stuff.
And it's the best. I mean, it takes a village. It really does. And I look back at when I was running my non-for-profit, and I think I mentioned to you that we teamed up with another organization because, as you know, it's not a competition. If you could team and bring your resources together, like you said, you have people that do your t-shirts. Yeah, you could do the t-shirt stuff and that stuff, but is that really where your skill set is? it's maybe better for you, like you said, to pay someone to do it. So I teamed up with another organization. And now that we teamed up, even though I'm not considered the founder, my ego is not involved with it, I'm able to make, we're able to make a bigger impact on the community, and it allows me to focus more time on school and focus more time on my family and be a speaker. But what's cool is if you would have told me years ago, early in my spiritual development, that I'd be merging groups, I wouldn't have been against it. I'd be like, oh, but I put all this effort into it. It's my group. It's my organization. Because it went through a transformation. Before it was even a non-for-profit shop, it was called Paul's Buddy Club.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I give too much detail, but the first couple events that we would do is before four of us cafe, getting a coffee. Then it'd be a couple of us going to the movies. And it was called Paul's Buddy. And all we had was a Facebook group. We didn't even have an email list, I don't even think, at that point. But then what happened was their friends wanted to join our events. So instead of me calling a dozen people every other weekend to do whatever event we had planned, I created an email list. Then eventually I created a website. And then I'm like, you know what? Why don't we turn this into a non-for-profit? We have parents that want to donate. We have people that want to get involved. And I said to myself, I want to enjoy this group just as much as I am now before it becomes a non-profit. I want to make sure I enjoy the process when it is a non-for-profit. That was the most important thing, because I was never getting paid for it. It never was about the money. It was never about that. My only philosophy is I only want to be doing in life what I enjoy. And I said, if any moment comes up where I start dreading it and it becomes work more than pleasure and enjoyment, then I'm going to have to reevaluate what I'm doing. And luckily that time has never come. There has been challenging moments, like in any for-profit or non-for-profit. As you know, there's a lot of stressors and responsibilities that come with running any organization, whether you're making a profit or not. There's always obstacles and challenges that come your way. But to me, I said early on that my most important thing is to enjoy it. And like I said, I went from Paul's Buddies to the Northport Buddy Club. And then we just recently, about 2 years ago now, I think we changed the name to the Long Island Buddy Club, because what happened was we were expanding from obviously outside my town of Northport, which is in Long Island, New York. We started inviting people from all across the island. And what was crazy is you would have some parents and some individuals that would literally travel an hour and a half to come to these events because there was such a need for these social gatherings. Because, I mean, now it's very tricky with the whole social gathering thing, but we take for granted the ability to make friends, to call up friends. The special needs population, it's sometimes often very difficult for them just to call up friends and find a business that is friendly to the special needs community, that's going to be welcoming and accommodating and accepting. So I would take all that work and I would basically search for the businesses and canvas and go in and make sure that we were planning events at places that were going to be accepting and that would maybe even give us a little break on the price. And, because as you know, not every place and every individual is very patient, is very accepting and compassionate. Yeah. So that in itself was some of the biggest challenges I had, was finding the businesses that I knew 150% was going to be welcoming.
It's interesting that you mentioned how businesses react to certain groups of people. There's places out there that are not interested in the homeless being around their business in every way, shape, or form. There is some that will serve them out the back door, leftovers or whatever. And there is some that have signs on the window that says, you are a human and you're dignified. Mm-hmm. If you come in and tell me you're homeless, you'll receive this. It's a truncated meal, right? It's a specific little thing, right? But they can come in there and sit down and get served with dignity like real people for free or a greatly reduced price. But all those levels of business are out there, and they're that way for whatever their reason. Some of them have good reasons, some of them don't. But whatever the reason, they interact with people differently. I've been told many times that I am kind and I'm generous, but I'm not nice. I'm not just a blanket nice guy. Maybe you noticed, I don't know. But the thing that really gets me hung up on whether I'm nice or not nice is that I hold people accountable. And holding people accountable and enforcing boundaries and rules and expectations is not a nice thing. Mm-hmm. It's a very kind thing but it's not quote unquote nice. I'm not making them feel good about their situation when I'm doing this. And I'm not supposed to, because when this stuff happens, you have to be able to hold people accountable to whether it was agreed upon condition, whether it was not, their behavior at a certain event, place, or time, whether it's enforcement of the rules or whatever the thing is, right? Like if I see on your social media somewhere down the line that you aren't behaving in a right manner, Paul, I'm going to call you up and be like, hey man, WTF, what's up? You're not being Paul Vibes right now.
Bad vibes.
Yeah. And you can expect that from me, but it's not quote unquote a nice thing to do, but I'm okay with that.
No, I think that holding each other accountable is great. And, just because I'm all about good vibes and Paul vibes is, even myself, I try to keep myself in check and keep myself humble. And I always tell my friends that if I'm having days where I'm out of line or I'm not practicing what I preach, to call me out, because I know those people, those loved ones that are going to be calling me out are doing it because they want me to be the best version of myself. And just because I'm a positive guy doesn't mean I'm not realistic. I have my days where I'm not feeling such good vibes. I'm human, but I have to stick to what do I do? Because I like to work out. I like to meditate. I like to read. What are the things that I need to do to make sure that I'm bringing the best version of myself out? And that's what I try. What's funny is I had a couple performers onto the show that were awesome. A friend of mine, Black Alex, and then Kenny Brown. And they both, in their music, they talk a lot about their spiritual journey, the challenges, the addictions they've been through, the different obstacles they've been through. And they said something to me that I definitely agree. They say, when I'm up there and I'm performing and I'm talking about the different issues and the lessons I've learned in my music, it's not just to inspire people, and that's great if that happens, but it's really a reminder to myself to keep doing the things that I'm talking about. Because we don't have everything all figured out. None of us do. So for me, even when I'm speaking, I'm like, wow, that's so true. Because even though I'm speaking to the students about the challenges I've been through and the lessons I've learned, even if I'm talking to clients and people within the Buddy Club, it's a reminder to myself to be kinder, to be genuine, to be humble, because I have my days where I need to be reminded of those things. And I'm sure you do too, even though you're in a position of leadership in a lot of different areas in your life. I'm sure that we all have moments that are humbling and that need to bring us back down to earth. And I think that's important for everybody.
I do occasionally need to be reminded that I'm not as awesome as I think that I am.
You're pretty awesome, though.
I also need to be reminded that I'm not as funny as I think that I am.
Funny looking. No, you are a funny guy. I think that you got good vibes.
I appreciate that, Paul. I just know that throughout all this stuff that we can really do more together. And that's what it's all about. It's not about Travis. It's not about Paul. It's not about Paul vibes. It's about what are we doing as a group, whether that's, in the nonprofit, which is, my target audience, which is that it's in a business or a community or a family, or even as a population at large, as long as I'm okay not taking the credit. Like, oh, this is definitely Travis's idea. He's the best. Everyone talk about how great Travis is. Yeah. If I'm okay not holding that as my banner, like this is Travis's thing, the more okay I am with that, the easier everything grows and flows and is magical. And if I'm too worried about my name, and I'm sure you agree that if you're too worried about Paul Vibes being the guy, it's not as good as a product. It's not as enriching. It's not as fulfilling as if we are doing this together. Definitely.
And I think for me, making that merge with the organization, I had to make that decision before I went to school. And for me, I talked to my vice president. We both kind of knew it was coming, that we were getting to the point, and people watching this who either have not-for-profits like yourself or have worked at not-for-profits, you go through stages, you go through different periods where there's growth or maybe you need to take a step back. But my organization was taking a step forward. But what was happening is we're going forward, and anytime you go forward, you're probably going to need to invest more time, resources, money, because when you take things to the next level, it usually takes more work, not less work. And I knew that.
Whoa. You have to put more effort into something to grow?
Crazy. I know,
right? If you're listening to this, taking notes right now, right, that it's going to take more.
It's going to take more. But I realized, I was like, listen, the group deserves more. This special needs group deserves more. But I'm about to go to school. I also have a son. I have a lot of other things going on. Did I realistically have the capacity and the ability to take things to the next level while I also have all these other things going on? And I really, not to get too super spiritual here, but I really believe that things aligned. I ended up, like I mentioned earlier, teaming up with another organization, which everybody can look up. It's called Positive Behavioral Support Services. They also have an office here in Northport, and they do things very similar to the Buddy Club, where they plan events. They also have a larger budget. They've been doing things for longer than I have. And now I sit on the board to this organization, PBS, located here in Northport. And I had to put my ego aside. And that was years in the making. Like I said, if you would have told me the first year I started the organization that I would be merging with another organization, I would say, wow, why am I doing this? It's my group. It's my thing. And to be honest, people joke about the whole Paul Vibes thing. But it's funny because most of my mentors and coaches who are motivational speakers and authors, they normally use their first and last name. So, for example, I have a very successful friend. He goes as David Flood. So it's davidflood.com or jimryan.com. My last name's Scancarelli. So nobody's going to be typing in Paul Scancarelli. Try spelling that right now without looking at your paper.
Scancarelli. Scancarelli. Paul Scancarelli.
Close. It's Scancarelli.
So close.
That was really good though. So I had, and the reason why Vibes came, just so you know, I think you kind of talked about it a little bit, is during the time of the organization, and I'll give small talks here and there before I even thought about being a motivational speaker, and the word vibes would come up a lot. You got good vibes. And I think someone joked around, Paul Vibes, you got that Paul Vibes. And I was like, wow. I was like, Paul Vibes. I'm all about the good energy, the peace. And I don't know if you saw my, I used the peace sign for the V.
Yeah.
And it was just a way to brand myself. But I constantly remind myself that it's not about me. It's more importantly, like it's the change that we make in the community. I just want to end on this point, is that when I'm speaking at schools, it's not to inspire kids to make that same impact on the special needs community. If that's their calling and that's what they want to do, that's wonderful. But more importantly, I want young adults to find their own change that they want to make in the community and follow through on that change, whatever that means to them. Whatever change they see is needed in their community, and if they're passionate about, I want them to make that change. They don't need to follow in my footsteps. They don't need to do what I do. I want them to do, what interests them.
That's fantastic advice. Where can we find you online?
You could find me at paulvibes.com. Also Instagram at paulvibes. Everything's with the peace sign logo. YouTube. I have a goal on YouTube to get 1,000 subscribers by the end of April. And like you do, I'm also going to be uploading my podcast, which is called the People's Podcast, but everything is found under Paul Vibes. I'm going to be uploading to iTunes and iHeart and Spotify. And I think you and people like Matt and you have inspired me to kind of expand where I put my podcast. And I love watching your development and all the stuff that you guys are always like involved in everything online, and you guys have great content. So I always love watching you guys.
I appreciate that. We're working hard on it. I know Matt is too. Thank you so much for coming on today, Paul. Love having you guests, and I can't wait to see where you go and what you do with the People's Podcast and the Paul Vibes brand.
And I'd love to have you on there soon too.
Let's book it.
All right. Send you good vibes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Hop on over to patreon.com/nonprofit architect. Throw us a couple bucks a month. See the behind the scenes first calls that I do with people like Paul, and how we talk and work out what it is that we're going to talk about, how we meet each other, and all those little details.
You've been listening to The Nonprofit Architect. To listen to all our past shows, visit http://nonprofitarchitect.org. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show. Thank you.